Hare Krishna. This is Krishnendu here. Excuse my voice, I'm recovering from a cold, as you can hear. Maybe you can also hear in the background I'm at a Kirtan festival with Madhava Prabhu and also with Radhika, his wife, and at the moment we have Trivikram Prabhu singing. So it's it's a wonderful place to be. I'm happy to be here. So anyway, while I was here, I just had a few thoughts based on some conversations that I've had lately, and I thought I'd share them on a Facebook Live. If you see this, it may not be live anymore. Perhaps you'll see this as a recording, but in any case, if you can leave your comments, I'd really appreciate it. I wanted to talk about what I see as an important need in our society, which I'll get to a little bit later. But first I just want to talk about what led to my thoughts on the subject. So recently there was a conversation that we were having about, one devotee was speaking and saying that he feels that devotees treat each other really badly, and that they label each other, call them things like, that guy's out of it, he's a Mayavadi, he's a sense enjoyer. We use all kinds of terms to label devotees. She's less intelligent, this type of thing. And this devotee was basically saying that he's been to other churches and other religions, and he feels that they seem to treat each other a lot better than devotees do. That devotees can be quite harsh and personal with each other. He gives an example, when a devotee's sick, we should go to the hospital, and he feels that devotees may be not doing that. So I just wanted to reflect on that. What do you think? Do you think that devotees treat each other badly, or do you think that devotees actually, treat each other nicely? I'd be interested to hear your opinion, and I'm sure that it's not a black and white answer. That in some cases, there may be devotees that treat each other badly, or that don't maybe look after each other as well as we could. But then in other cases, the association of devotees can be very sweet. So I just wonder, what's your impression of your association with devotees? Have you found it to be more on the nectar side, more on the Vaishnava association is so enlivening side of things, or more on the Krishna conscious philosophy is good, but the devotees, they really don't treat me all that well. I'd be interested to hear your opinion. I have my opinion, which I'll just keep to myself for now. But in this regard, there is a saying which I've come across in relationship to business, particularly membership sites, online communities. They say that people join for the content, but they stay for the community. And I think in Krishna consciousness it's very relevant and very true. We can reword it. The Christians say it in a different way. They say that basically people join the church because of the sermon by the priest on Sunday, but they stay because of the relationships that they have and the fellowship that they have with the other people in the congregation. So, and even in Krishna consciousness, I think you could say something similar, that people join for the philosophy, but they stay for the association. So I think it's this point about the way we associate with each other is really important. And whichever side of the this discussion you sort of put yourself, whether you think that devotees don't treat each other well, or that the devotees are the most amazing people to associate with, whichever side of the conversation you're on, one thing that we can't argue with is that association is so important. In fact, it's one of the 5, let me see, let's do some gestures here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, high five. It's one of the 5 potent forms of devotional service. So my memory's not as good as it used to be, but let me see if I can remember. These are not in order. Chanting the holy name, studying Srimad Bhagavatam, residing in a holy place, deity worship, and association of devotees. Woohoo! I got all 5. So anyway, we can see that associating with devotees is such an important topic. And as I say, whichever side of the argument you find yourself, we can't argue the importance of association. So I'm curious, as soon as you come online, like Ganesh, nice to see you here. Let me know, what do you think? Do you think that as a whole, in our society today, that devotees treat each other well? Or do you think that devotees neglect each other or don't treat each other so well? I'm in New Zealand, in case you are not familiar with me. And where are you from, Ganesh? It'd be nice to know. So yeah, that's what we were discussing, is how do devotees treat each other. And sometimes, and I think this was particularly true in the previous times, in the early days, that devotees become so-called spiritual that they will go and do their chanting and go and do book distribution and just leave their kids behind, as an example, or not really take the time to get to know devotees and talk to them personally, because talking about your personal life, that's Maya, we should be only talking from Krishna book, this kind of understanding. I don't think it's really like that anymore, but I'd be interested to hear what your experience is, because naturally everyone has a different perspective based on their experience. In any case, whichever way you look at it, I was thinking to myself, what can we do to improve Vaishnava association? What might be lacking in our society? So recently I've read a book by a Christian called Rick Warren, and this devotee, not devotee, but this pastor, this Christian preacher, he started a church in California. And basically he decided that he wasn't going to try to steal anyone from anyone else's church. He was going to go out and he was going to preach to the unchurched and make his own church. So the short story is that it turned into the fastest growing church in America. Within 10 or 15 years it grew to over 10,000 active members. And then what this person, Rick Warren, did is he wrote basically a manual called The Purpose-Driven Church, which is a guidebook on how he started and grew his church. And one of the key points that he makes is that obviously from the title we have to be very clear about our purpose and stay true to that. And one of the key points that he emphasized is that it's not about trying to make a big church or trying to make a church grow. That's a superficial type of understanding. His concept was that we should have a healthy church. And when you have a healthy church, then it'll automatically grow. When you're doing the right things, then naturally there'll be growth. There's sometimes an argument, should we focus on outreach, or should we focus on, just working with the devotees that we have? And this book is making the point that both things need to be there. And Prabhupada emphasized a lot that we should go out and spread Krishna consciousness, and that's actually part of our process of development. At the same time, we shouldn't just be going out and preaching and not practicing ourselves. I just came from this Sacred Sound Kirtan retreat, as you can see here. I'm not sure if I can show the back of my t-shirt, it's also pretty cool. Here we go. A little hard to show, but it was a really awesome experience. Jimna Swami was speaking there. He was talking about Namacharya Haridas Thakur. And a famous quote about Namacharya Haridas Thakur is that some people preach but don't practice, and some people practice but don't preach. But Haridas Thakur is the perfect example of someone who practices and preaches. So Haridas Thakur was chanting 192 rounds a day, which I believe included some kirtan. He used to do 100,000 names in very quiet japa, silently basically. He used to do 100,000 names so that others could hear, and he used to do 100,000 names on the top of his voice, like reaching out. And even though he was chanting 192 rounds a day, he was still going out and preaching. It's an amazing story. So, what was my point? My point was that we shouldn't neglect preaching in the name of just looking after ourselves. These things are all synergistic. We chant our japa, we do kirtan with the devotees, and we go out on Harinam, we distribute books, and we share Krishna consciousness with others. And all of these processes are helping us to become more Krishna conscious and helps our society to become healthy so it can grow. That was my point. A healthy society. So what does it mean, a healthy society? Well, in the context of what we're talking about today, a really important thing is how we treat each other. What are our relationships like? And with that in mind, what can we do that will help us to cultivate these relationships? So when we were having this discussion, I was talking about with a devotee who was saying that, devotees don't treat each other well, they force their children too much, and that turns them off, and this type of discussion. My question was, if you've observed that in other churches and other religions, that they're doing better than us, that their relationships seem to be a lot more caring, and a lot more, that they feel a much closer connection, that they look after each other more. The question would be, why is it that those groups are looking after their people better than us, than we as a society are? And this is just accepting the argument that devotees don't look after each other well, which I'm not so sure about. But if we just look at it and see how we can improve, we can look at other organisations that have a reputation for really caring. So for example, he gave the example that he went to a Mormon church, and even though he was dressed as a devotee, the people there just were so welcoming. Oh, look, everybody, give a welcome for this person who's just come. And sorry, car just drove in. You can probably hear the engine. It won't be here for long, I hope. I'll keep talking though. And so we can observe that there's a lot of care in some of these different groups. So what can we learn from these people? What is it that they're doing? Because my point was that the entrance is over that way.
Yeah, but this wall is booked from us for 5:15.
Oh, maybe there's the other room. There's another room on the other side. Yeah, you can go around the front and ask.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
No.
I hope there's no double booking there. So welcome, Mukesh. Nice to see you. Today I'm discussing a topic which recently a devotee was saying that devotees in our society, we don't treat each other as well as we should. We don't care for each other, because we feel we're too transcendental. We should just be, chanting and talking about Krishna, and not, we don't have to care about people's needs. He felt that, devotees have that mentality that, just chant Hare Krishna. That's the answer for every problem. So do you think that's the case, or what's your experience with your association with devotees? Have they treated you well? Have you noticed that devotees treat each other well on the whole, or not? So that's the topic of discussion. So what I was saying is that if we observe that, we feel that this other church is treating people a lot better than we're treating each other. So my point would be, well, wait a minute. We're humans. The people in that church are humans. We're the same nature, essentially. There must be something in the system of their church that's different from the system in our society that's bringing out this caring mood. So what could that be? So, it might be directly the preaching, that the focus of the preaching is that they talk about how we need to show our love for God by the way that we show our love for each other. Something like this. Or perhaps we need to, or perhaps it's the way that the services are structured. For example, when everybody sits and listens and there's no chance to ask questions, it means there's not so much interaction. And it's very much, you just sit, you just listen, and you do your thing. Not as much interaction going on. So what I was thinking is, in the purpose-driven church, the way that they talk about developing the fellowship and the relationships between the members is by having small group gatherings. Just like if we look at it from a Krishna conscious point of view and compare it with this, churches, we have our Sunday feast program, which is mostly for new people, to explain the basics of Krishna consciousness, let them experience the chanting and so on. And then from there, we say, hey, take up the chanting, and in what? Systematically, there's not really a next step for people other than keep coming to the Sunday feast, try chanting Hare Krishna, follow the principles, but you're basically on your own. Whereas in the purpose-driven church, what Rick Warren really emphasizes is that to develop the community, and also not just the fellowship in the community, but also how to develop deeper spiritual understanding, so that we can understand the philosophy properly, and so that we can also understand how to apply the philosophy, how to deal with the challenges that we're facing in our spiritual life. So in the purpose-driven church, Rick Warren, he's emphasizing the importance of small group gatherings. Why? Because it's an opportunity where everyone has a chance to contribute, everyone has a chance to speak, to share their thoughts, to express their concerns, to talk about the challenges that they face, and get support from the others in the group. So it simultaneously helps us to practically apply the Krishna conscious philosophy and understand it more deeply, as well as to develop the relationships that come when you actually really have a good heart-to-heart conversation with someone. So I think that developing these small groups is a really key element, and there have been initiatives to develop this in ISKCON, such as the Bhakti Vriksha groups, which I think is a really good initiative, and I think it's something that we need to look at implementing a lot more. I'm not really in favour of GBC resolutions that say everyone has to do this, but I think that if we can just spread the message amongst ourselves that we need to spend time in intimate talks with devotees, develop some small groups of our own, that this will really strengthen our Krishna consciousness. And if it can become a systematic part of each temple's preaching, it'll be so powerful. So it means that after someone comes to the Sunday feast and they show interest, we can provide them a next step, which is, hey, come and join one of our small groups. In that small group, you'll be able to share, your mind in confidence. In front of the Sunday feast, people are not going to really open up much. It's in public. But in small groups, you have a chance to, develop this confidential type of relationship that is described in Nectar of Instruction. Dadati pratigrinanti guya makyati prichati. Revealing our mind, and also revealing our mind in confidence, and then hearing from devotees. In these small groups, we can develop the skill of listening and guiding and supporting each other. So that's basically my message for the day, is I think that if we can take the initiative to develop small group gatherings as much as possible, it will be a really great support to help devotees, as they come into Krishna consciousness, show interest, we can help them to cultivate it. So this is in the earlier stage. And then as we go on in our Krishna consciousness, and we've been around for a lot longer, it gives us an environment where we can share with people who are practicing Krishna consciousness for a while, and we can discuss at a level that we can relate to. If all we have is a Sunday feast, then we're going to hear you're not the body. Now, of course, we have to keep hearing it again and again, but we also need to discuss matters that are relevant to our experience and our own level, and our own situation in Krishna consciousness. And again, that's where these small groups are great, because people of a like mind can get together. I'll just give another example. I was looking on a website of a local church here, quite a big church in Auckland, called the City Impact Church. and they have small groups. So I had a look, they had a whole list of them on their website, and it said that they have 69 small group gatherings, and I think most of them meet weekly. Maybe some of them might meet monthly or whatever, but there's 69 small group gatherings. Why so many? Because there's so many reasons why people can get together. To give examples of the small group gatherings that they had in the City Impact Church, they had mothers with small babies, or new babies. They had a soccer where the young people in their church get together and they play soccer. They had a businessman's breakfast. This famous prayer breakfast you might have heard of. What else? They even had a arts and crafts gathering. So they have this interest in arts and crafts, and rather than just joining any random group that do that, they're actually getting together with people of the same faith, so they can increase their fellowship, while at the same time doing the things that they would have done anyway that they like to do. So these are just a few examples. Another one would be, a students' small group at the university. Maybe a parenting group. There's all different opportunities where people can get together, and it really doesn't matter what's your excuse. It could be based on language. In New Zealand, there's a lot of Korean churches, for example, so they get together on the basis of their language. You could have a Russian group or a Bengali group or whatever it is, on the basis of your language and culture, because it's something that brings you together. You have that common bond, which is very helpful when it comes to developing friendships. It's the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, and we come from all backgrounds, and we're not the body and everything like that. At the same time, it's much easier to connect with people who have something in common. It's another point that Rick Warren makes, that when it comes to preaching, we tend to be better at attracting people like ourselves and preaching to people like ourselves. So he was saying when he was 26, he was attracting people in their 20s who were like entrepreneurs and business-minded type people, because that's the kind of person he was. And then in the book he was saying that, now that I'm nearly 50, hey, sounds like me, I'm nearly 50. Wow. Anyway, he was saying that now he has other people who preach to the people who are in their 20s, because they can't relate to him as much. And he finds that he's more connected with the people who are a bit older. And also just the type of occupations that people might have. We're naturally attracted to certain type of people, and there's nothing wrong with that. If each devotee goes and preaches to the people that he's connected to with the best, and there's a wide range of devotees, then we can cover all the bases without feeling kind of guilty that, I'm Indian and I seem to be mostly preaching to Indians, but Prabhupada really wanted to preach to the Westerners, this is not good. Now, of course, we do want to preach to the local people. This is something strong, but it seems to me our society is very much, the culture that we have is naturally following a lot of the Indian customs. It's natural that Indian people will feel at home with that type of thing. And then when it comes to preaching to Westerners, like for me, I'm in New Zealand, so the local people here are mostly New Zealanders, which are kind of Westernized, whatever background they are. So it's natural that people from New Zealand will probably relate better to the people from New Zealand rather than someone from another country. So there's nothing wrong with doing that. The point is that if we can find people and we can build relationships and connect with them, that's the way that we can spread Krishna consciousness. So I'll basically wrap up here and just again say, look, if you're watching this video on the recording, the question that we're asking is, do you think that devotees treat each other well or not? And the second point is, let's introduce more small group gatherings. I belong to one myself, which is supposed to meet today, but due to the Kirtan festival, we'll be meeting again tomorrow. It meets every 2 weeks, where we actually have time to share what's going on in our lives, as well as discuss Prabhupada's books. So this kind of gathering, I think, is really important, and I guess the final conclusion of this video is to encourage everybody to see if you can get together with a bunch of devotees that are your friends, and actually put aside time where you can have a Krishna conscious gathering. Share what's happening in your life, discuss Prabhupada's books and how you can apply it in your life, and see what it does for the relationships that you have. See how much closer you'll find your connection with the other devotees. And let me know in this Successful Vaisnavas Facebook page, or personal message to me or whatever. I'd be really interested to hear your experience, because from my experience it's such a powerful tool which we're not really using enough in our society at the moment, and I think it could really help to deal with that that complaint that was spoken about, that I started this discussion about, that devotees don't treat each other well, they don't care for each other's needs, they don't have a sense of fellowship, they're just too spiritual. So I think that having small groups will help to address this. And even if that's not the case, even if devotees do treat each other well, I think it will really help us to deepen our relationships at the same time as deepening our Krishna conscious experience and realization. So I'll sign off here. Maybe I'll just wander over into the kirtan so that we can end on the auspicious sound of the holy name, and that'll be a great way to end. So please leave your comments below. Let me know what you think. Let me know your experience with small groups and how it's affected your spiritual life. So here we go. Just say hi to a few friends here. Say Hare Krishna on Facebook Live.
Hare Krishna!
This is Facebook Live, the whole world basically. Yeah.
I wanted to video, but we have to go, so thanks for videoing.
That's Diana, and this is Padasari and Avati. So yeah, cool. They've been to some of our small group gatherings, so we know them quite well. And here we go, we're going to a big group gathering, which are also important. So here we go, I'll just switch the camera around and let's have a look. So this is Madhava Prabhu's wife who's leading it at the moment. And these gatherings are also very inspiring. Along with small groups, these big gatherings are awesome.